Welcome back. My name is Candice Sanderson, and today I am building on the last episode called Psychic Nonsense. Although I didn't realize it when I published that episode, I think I will create a new series on how to use psychic tools, how to use what the messengers refer to as our nonsenses. In this series, we will delve into some of the tools that can be and are as individual as each of us. What kind of tools? Tools for healing? Yes, why not? Tools for better communication? Sure. Why not communicate better? And this is in the 3D and the 5D. Tools for having out of body experiences? Yeah, let's do that too. Many of my subscribers know of my love for Monroe Institute, and I use the Institute's app called Expand. And lately, there are more and more people joining in the conversations in the community groups section. Whether they have a paid subscription for the app or whether you use the free version, everyone has access to the community groups. But especially recently, the last few months, I hear over and over the same questions and the same frustrations expressed. What am I doing wrong? How can I have an out of body experience, an OBE? I mean, after all, I've tried so hard for 2 weeks, for 3 weeks, maybe even a couple of months. What's wrong? Why hasn't it happened yet? When I hear these, I can only shake my head at those comments. It was years before I began having out of body experiences. But now that I do, I realize that my experiences actually began earlier than I had originally thought. So, in this series, I'm going to share some of the tricks that I personally learned through my experiences and through the guidance of my messengers and the tools that they introduced. But to do this, we need to be on the same page. We need a common language, a shared vocabulary to understand how and why the tools work. And once you understand that, you can start building your own set of devices. To keep the episodes relatively short, I'm going to take a couple episodes to cover the basics. But as I review the basics that if you followed me or read my book, some of these are going to sound familiar to you. But what we're going to do is go over several things. We're going to go over that formula on how energy works, TEA, thoughts, energy, action. We will look at expanding consciousness by examining what the messengers called the POE, point of existence. We'll see how expanding our awareness affects how we experience time. We will learn about our body's natural GPS capabilities when we're traveling in the 5D, and we'll learn how to set a bookmark, just like setting a pin in GPS. We'll discuss the observer, the witness. We'll talk about the heart as a portal. I'll give you an example of an experience that I had that I didn't realize till later that it was a tool. So let's dive in. Let me start with that formula that the messengers gave me, TEA, thoughts, energy, action. I covered this in the last episode, Psychic Nonsense. But everything is energy, not just things, but also emotions and thought. If we want to manifest something into action, TEA, thoughts, energy, action, we start with a thought. If it's a purposeful thought, we call that an intention. But let's look at those thoughts that maybe are not intentional. We may look at an action that we've taken or something that's happened, and we ask, How on earth did that happen? Surely we didn't ask for that. But when we dissect it, when we reverse engineer the action, we then realize, oh gosh, it really did begin with a thought, and it was my thought. It may have been something quick in passing. It may not have been a thought that was well thought out, but yes, it had indeed begun with a thought. Here's a lesson. Be careful what you think because thoughts become things. So be very mindful of your thoughts. One reason this is important is when you become so familiar with your field, with your thoughts, it raises your sensitivity level to other thoughts. Sometimes something new comes into your awareness, and if you're familiar enough with your own field, you realize, where did that come from? It was not from me. So when you realize that, then you can stop and you can ask, is this information from a guide? Is someone trying to connect with me? Maybe something comes into your field that is uncomfortable and the hair on the back of your neck rises. If so, that's a wonderful time to put up your defenses, to put a bubble of protection around you. In that TEA formula, the E stands for energy, and that is what fuels our thoughts. It's that bridge between the thoughts and the action. So if we want our thoughts to manifest what we want them to manifest, we need to use what I call high octane fuel. And energy, being what it is, energy, we want to fuel our thoughts with higher vibrations. What does that mean? Love, gratitude, humor, laughter, compassion. It's that energy that children naturally have when they are playing, when they are in the middle of a fantasy, riding on unicorns, flying through a starlit night. All the worries of the day are pushed aside, and there's room for only fun and excitement. You see, children do this naturally. We, as adults, unfortunately, lose touch with that magical side. In fact, we've been known to tell others to grow up or to get real. And I don't know, we remind them that this is the real world, not some fantasy game. Well, we could not be more wrong. So, this TEA, thoughts, energy, action formula, is the organizing principle behind all these psychic tools that we will develop. Let me introduce another concept that we'll be working with, expanding consciousness. I have a question for you. What is an out-of-body experience? Have you ever had one? An OBE is when your energy body leaves your physical body, and then you, as an energy form, will interact with a non-physical environment. Now, sometimes that environment is similar to our 3D world, but you might notice a few changes. You might find yourself in your bedroom, but the coloring of the wall is off, or maybe you're walking throughout your house and all of a sudden there's a room that wasn't there before. Step outside and there's trees growing where, they weren't. But sometimes this environment hardly resembles the 3D at all. So the locale you go to during your out of body experience depends on how far you travel. Do we stick around our homes, our neighborhoods, or do we catch the tail of a comet that zooms by and end up in deep space? Maybe we go to a dark place that's not so comfortable, maybe even terrifying. Well, if that happens, don't worry. We are the ones in control, and we can decide where to go. So if we find ourselves where we'd rather not be, we can change it. That's one of the purpose of using these tools to direct us where we would like to go. It does not have to be a surprise. There are many different realms we can go to, and we experience these through different levels or layers of our energy bodies. The energy bodies sometimes are known by different names, depending on what source you read. Some say there's 4 levels or bodies, some say 5, some say 7 corresponding to the basic chakras, some say 9. Different terms are used for the same energy body. Here's a few to consider. First is the physical energy body. Yes, our physical body is also composed of energy, but its density is what allows our 5 physical senses to connect and interact with it and our environment. The second etheric energy body is closest to the physical, and this body forms a matrix, a template around our 3D body. When healers work, they often make changes in the etheric blueprint, working on blockages before they manifest into the physical body as a dis-ease. Some say this body is that bridge to the astral realms. The next body is an emotional energy body that contains the emotional patterns, our feelings. This is subtler, less defined, as is each energy body as we move farther beyond the physical. Those who can see energy will see this body as patterns of light that reflect our current emotions. Higher vibrational patterns are often bright, full of light, while lower vibrational energies are often dark and murky. Next, we move to the mental energy body. And that also seems to be a type of matrix or blueprint, but this one contains all of our beliefs. This is where our thoughts materialize as thought forms. And it's within this energy body that we really begin to understand and experience that thoughts are things. And this mental energy body is really closely connected to the one we just talked about, the emotional energy body. People who can see energy often describe this one as a yellow light. Some describe the next energy body as the astral body, but whatever name we use, we slip into a spiritual energy body that contains information related to all of our experiences of this lifetime. It's where our desires, our purpose, or our mission in life resides. Some people call this the celestial body. Okay, so I've shared a lot of information, but I like to keep things simple. We don't have to subscribe to any of these beliefs or a certain terminology because you see, everything is energy. And what's important to remember is that there are different layers within the energy fields, ranging from the very dense, like our 3D physical bodies, and becoming less dense until we reach those very subtle energy bodies that we use to travel to dimensions in our nighttime dreams, in our daydreams, in our meditations, or in our out of body experiences or near death experiences. We are always, to some degree or another, transitioning between these energy fields, these energy bodies. For most people, we're in the subtle energy body longest during our nighttime dreams. And why? That's because our egos are sleeping. They're not judging what's going on. They're not telling us, you can't do this, that's crazy. There's no judgment. But these layers of energy are so natural and subtle that sometimes, and I dare say most of the time, we don't even recognize that we are transitioning to them. It's just a part of life. It's organic. But I want you to learn to become aware of these transitions because when we recognize them, we can then use them to deepen the experiences, to stay in those states with purpose and intention so we can explore. How do we do this? Well, you will be able to pull one of your tools from your tool belt or your dashboard to help. Out of body experiences. Many people who have read about OBEs are familiar with stories of people who report going to bed at night and then they roll out into an energy body. They may not know it at the time. Often they just think they woke up and got out of bed. When they look around, they're in a familiar setting, much like what the 3D world looks like. They are in what many refer to as the astral world because this next energy body beyond the physical is still relatively dense, and the environment will reflect that. That's why it looks like the 3D. I've read other stories where people wake to find themselves bouncing off the ceiling or floating in the air. And when they look down, they're surprised to see someone in their bed next to their partner. It takes a few seconds before they realize that they are seeing their own physical body. Yeah, it's them. Yet they are here observing that physical body. But that physical body is also them, right? So they are literally in two places at one time. How can that be? It's really not that difficult of a concept to understand. Let's say that you are in a class listening to a lecture when you realize your mind is elsewhere. In this daydream, you're fantasizing about having that chocolate sundae or watching that movie or hanging out with your best friend. We've all done that. But do you realize that during this daydream, you've just slipped into another aspect of yourself, another layer, if you will, of your body? It's another energy form of you. So while sitting in a classroom, you've transitioned to a non physical realm. In essence, you are bilocating because you are literally in two places at once. These are the things that I would like you to notice, but with a different perspective. Don't think, well, that's just a daydream. Of course it is. Everyone daydreams. It's a natural part of life. Absolutely. But how does this work? Who is in the daydream? I want you to consider what happened, that you've just stepped into, not the twilight zone, but into that field of energy that surrounds you. And after all, isn't that what an out of body experience is? Being outside the physical. See how natural that is? It can get confusing if you do a deep dive, but let's keep it simple. Let's learn to look at things differently. And when we do, we realize that out of body experiences are common and they occur much more frequently than just during our dreams. Your homework until the next episode is to observe. Look for transitions into subtler realms, dreams, daydreams, intuitive hints. See them for what they are, those initial steps into the non physical world of energy. That is where we will set up shop and develop tools for exploring this wonderful, mysterious world that surrounds us. So, in the next episode, we'll delve deeper into what happens when we expand our consciousness. We'll look at how that affects us and how it affects our perceptions in the 3D life. With the help of my messengers, I'll show you precisely how and why expanding consciousness is the basis of an out of body experience. I also want you to think of that TEA formula, thoughts, energy, action, and how it affects you. Realize how powerful your thoughts and words are. They not only affect you, but those around you. Remember the importance of kindness. Your words matter, and so do your thoughts. Thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate you very much. I welcome new subscribers, any comments, shares, and likes. So until next time, goodbye.